in much the same boat. I couldn't give a flip one way or the other. I really don't care. But it takes me all of about 7 seconds to stack the pillows at the head of the bed and to pull the comforter. I'm not really good about straightening the sheets and all that other stuff. But I will at least hide the fact that I didn't make the rest of the bed. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. So, any questions about tension and resistance? Because this is fundamental. If you don't get this, all the rest of it's going to be difficult. All right. Got it. All right. So, tension and resistance means you don't stop to take the picture while the house is on fire. Okay, you pay attention to the fact that the house is on fire. If you got somebody who's in behavioral crisis, you don't really care they didn't take the garbage out. Do you understand? They can figure out taking out the garbage when they're not in crisis. So when you're already frustrated, confused, angry, disappointed, throwing one more thing at you is not going to help you. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's put the fire out first. Let's figure out how to reduce the tension and resistance, figure out how to build in those social skills, the relationship stuff, and the stress management techniques so that we can bring this fire down to a manageable level. Then we can talk about taking a picture. Okay? So, quickly about behavior change, because one of the things that historically has been done is to focus on changing the behavior by changing the consequence. All right? And I know that you guys understand this better than many, but there's a whole lot of other people who don't. But I want to make sure we're all on the same footing before we go forward. So we've got the language of behavior changes, the antecedents, the stuff that comes before the behavior is, and then the consequences, the things that come after the behavior. Okay? So I want to pay attention quickly to point out that consequences are not the same thing as punishment. In the example that I used earlier about me being in the Catholic schools, okay, the punishment was one of the consequences. They were upset with me. The teachers, the school system was not happy with me. They were punishing me. What was the other consequence of my acting out? It was reinforcing because my peers liked me. They were paying attention to me. So do you understand that consequences aren't necessarily the same thing as punishment? Okay? And their affection, their appreciation, their valuing me outweighed any punishment they could come up with. Does that make sense? All right? So, we also have some major, major problems with consequence-based things, like violating laws, like abuse and neglect, and all those other kinds of things that kind of fall into that. And you've also got ethical and moral issues, like we know that consequence-based interventions do not work on a long-term basis. We know that. The research says it. And yet we keep doing it, and the reason we keep doing it is because we got spanked when we were kids. Well, that's great logic. Yeah. My mom spanked me because she caught me with a beer. That stopped me from drinking. Not! Right? I mean, you understand? It doesn't make any sense. If consequence-based interventions were really going to work on a long-term basis, no parent would ever have to worry again about going away for a long weekend that their house wasn't going to turn into a party place. Because every kid knows that if he gets caught doing that, his parents are going to be upset, and there will be consequences. But consequence-based interventions don't work on a long-term basis. All right, so we got antecedents, behaviors, and consequences. Now, the thing is that what we do is we design our consequences to address this strength level of the behavior. But by the time we can implement this consequence, the behavior had to occur another time, didn't it? Well, if the behavior happened just once more before we could intervene it, we've now increased the strength of this behavior by 100%. So we designed the consequence to address a previous level, and now the consequence is never going to possibly be strong enough to intervene. Does that make sense? Okay, next. We say, oh, well, we made a mistake. We got to make the consequence a little bit bigger. Okay, so we make it bigger, but now our behavior is 300% stronger than when we started, even if it happens only one more time. Do you know that if you can only do something 11 times, you can create a neural pathway in your mind that says this is the way to do something? How many times do you think most of the behaviors have happened before we see them the first time? How many times do you think those behaviors have happened before we've intervened the first time? You understand? At least 11. I'll give you at least 11. But the point is that now the behavior gets bigger and stronger in response to the consequence. Remember, the more I push down, there's resistance, isn't there? Okay? So I'm trying to stop something, and you're going, no, I don't want to stop it. Anytime you increase the resistance, you increase the strength of that behavior. Think about it. Otherwise, there'd be no reason to lift weights. You know, it makes the behavior, the muscle stronger. So we designed to get this really big consequence now. The problem is now we're bordering on, you can't freaking do this consequence. Because the next level is like shooting them or something. You understand? I mean, it's like, God, if anybody saw me actually do this level of consequence in public, they would call the police on me. Okay? So what we say to do instead is to change the antecedent, change the thing that comes before the behavior. Then you'll get a different behavior. Then you don't have to worry about the consequences. The consequences that happen are natural and logical. They make sense in the world. And they tend to reinforce the positive continuation of that antecedent. Because when their behavior changes, it makes us feel good, so we're more likely to keep doing the antecedent. So it's their behavior plan for us. But it's the only one that really works. Now, why do you spend all this time talking about this? Because this whole assessment is about changing antecedents. It's about thinking about how can we change what comes before the problem behavior does. What can we give them that's new, better, different, that they can respond to? Does that make sense? So that's what we're trying to accomplish. Any questions or comments or concerns?